So this video is my most modified bike. So a lot of my bikes are modified. So they either have a different carb on them, I've completely rebuilt them, I've changed the gears, you know, lowered first and second gear. Some of them are stock. I mean, even this one has modifications. I just bought it. I didn't really do anything to it besides put fans on it and stuff. I know that one has lower first, second gear, you know. This one again just has fans on it, modified. And this one has lowered first and second gear, and most bikes have that. But my most modified bike, the one I've done, and that one over there even has modified water cooling. So I mean, I've done some levels of modification to these bikes, and I've always got some ideas on some things that I need to modify to make them better or do what I want. So, but the 1983 Maico 490, this one here is my most modified bike. And we'll go over all the modifications that I've done to this bike. So the very first one is that this was actually a 4-speed. It was a 1983 Spider 4-speed, and I put the transmission, not the bottom end, just the gears, because the cases are the same size, so it fits in there. So I changed the shifting drum and the forks and the gears to just be the 1984 5-speed Sand Spider version. So the Sand Spider was actually the 83 5-speed, but the same gear ratios are also done in 84. The difference is, though, the 84 gears have needle bearings on all the gears, whereas the 83 transmissions had bushings. So the 84 is much better transmission. So this was actually a big upgrade, not only in 5-speed, but also in the fact that now the gears are sitting on needle bearings. So it's a much better transmission. Plus the 84s had all the fixes from the 83 problems. So that's a big upgrade. It has carbon fiber reeds, but that came with the bike when I got it. This connecting rod is actually polished. Someone polished it, but and so that was actually good when I took it apart. I had to have some fix to it, put some better washers in it because it didn't have good side-to-side spacing for the washers. But other than that, that was still fine. It has the modified pipe, but that also came with it when I got the bike. It has a aftermarket, you know, Mako, I believe Mako only pipe. It doesn't say anything on it though, but it's a modified pipe. So then the next thing is I did change the gas tank. You have the 3.5 gallon Enduro gas tank on it now. And we also have the modified, well, the front number plate gas tank, which is 1.3 gallon gas tank. It also has front disc brakes, which is from a CR 125, 1987, and an 86 front wheel, 86 CR500 front wheel, and 87 CR500 or CR125 front forks. Same forks that are actually on that bike too, by the way. So that's the first modification. The second one is it has a hydraulic clutch. So as you can see, the Magura hydraulic cable. It has the plastic one. I've always meant to switch it, but after 5 years, I've never had any problems with it. I'm always worried about these plastic cables breaking. But yeah, this one has the Magura hydraulic clutch pull, cable pull. I did have to have a modification to extend it so it would reach the actual clutch cable. All right. And then the next modification is the rear wheel. Of course, you've got the Trouse tire on it, but this is a 1982 or 1992 CR500 rear wheel, and the Maico bearings were put into it. So one side I have the Maico bearings, they fit right into it, and the other side I had a special bearing I had to find from some kind of car that actually had it. It's actually a kind of a patented bearing because it's a certain size bearing, but it's a little bit thicker, and it had to be to fit inside the rim there. And I needed to do this in order to keep the Maico axle. So the swing arm didn't need to be modified. I didn't need to modify the axle. So then the axle just slides right into there. Then of course we have a caliper that was from a Husqvarnas. And this, I took it to RB Designs machine shop, and he had cut this caliper in half and made a side plate here, and had a piece welded onto the swing arm so that it's like a standard, just a standard caliper setup. It's just that this has to sit a tiny bit on the swing arm because there's not enough space between here. So I had measured these before, and I noticed that there was a little bit more space between the drum brakes and the disc brakes. They had a little bit more wider space, so this would always have to sit on top of it a little bit. So anyhow, it's been side mounted. So, and then along with that, we now have this pedal, which is from a 86 Mako, and then I had to have this welded on here, this extension, so that it stops on the plate there. And then of course I had the Brembo cylinder here that was welded onto the frame, or pieces that were welded to the frame. And it's very, very touchy brakes. So, and then we have a 12-tooth front sprocket and probably like a 52 or something back sprocket. So the gearing ratio is way down from what it should be stock. I mean, the Sandspider had huge gearing ratios. They either had like a 15 or a 16 on the front, you know, and like a 48 on the back. I mean, they were going like 112 mile an hour stock, but I would do trail riding. So this thing does about 60 mile an hour the way I have it geared. It does about half of what it's supposed to be able to do. But again, I don't have open fields or anything to ride in, and so you can't really do 60 mile an hour in single track. So, and then of course with all my bikes, you have these tugger pulls so that whenever you're moving the bike around, instead of having to grab onto the frame and hurt your hand, you grab onto these things. And there's the one in the front here too. Plus pulls. So now you can grab it and move your bike around much easier. And of course we have the hand guards. So this one here is my most modified bike from what I got it with. I've modified this, as you can see, the most drastically, from drum brakes to disc brakes all around, hydraulic clutch, 4-speed to a 5-speed. So my most modified bike. And it's actually, the reason that I had gone through the trouble of doing this back thing here, because this was one of my favorite bikes to ride, but my problem was that it would never stop. You could not stop this bike. The brakes were terrible. And so I really wanted to ride this bike, and after years of having drum brakes, I was like, I was kind of getting to the limitations of that I really needed to have disc brakes for riding pleasure. And that's also why I haven't really been riding 82 after a while, because of the drum brakes. In fact, one time the drum brakes on the 82 actually busted, because if you can see how the 82 routes, this bar is above, not below the swing arm. And one time a bolt came out of here, snapped it. Came out of the sprocket and came around and snapped it right off when I was riding. I didn't even know until I hit the brakes. There's no brakes at all. But so it is possible at some point that my 81 and 82 may go from drum to disc brakes, just because it is making a big difference. I used to not think so, but after I started riding more and more and getting used to the disc brakes, I kind of realized that not having brakes was not something that I should be riding around with, because it really didn't have much brakes. So that's why I was like, if I really like this bike, I really want to ride it, I should just put disc brakes on it, whatever it takes to get it done. So that's why I did it. So now this bike here again is still, after all these other bikes, you can see it's still my favorite bike. The 83 is still my favorite bike. It's the simplest, it's reliable, it works, it's got a lot of power. Tractors along, it's very forgiving for the most part. It's not as smooth as the 82. Once you get to the 82 and get on this one, you can tell this one's a little more, got a little bit more torquey to it, but it's still very smooth. overall. So again, I also like the look of it. I think that the 83s look the best, I think. So anyhow, that's my take on, or that's my overview of the most modified bike that I have.